Initiating System Briefing. This is the full 360-degree Sovereign Architect's Guide to Private Administration. We're going to deconstruct the technical process of transitioning from the status of a public employee to that of a private administrator, as defined by this framework.
All data presented is a direct distillation from the core system architecture. Our focus is strictly on the mechanics of the method. So, let's begin the protocol review.
So, what is the primary objective? It's right here. The core mandate is a total shift in legal and administrative status. We're looking at a very structured process designed to decouple an individual from specific public administrative systems.
This briefing is structured into 6 modules. We'll start with the system objective, then execute a walkthrough of the 4 core protocols: status correction, architectural construction, commercial engineering, and security management. We'll conclude with the system's lifecycle and operational metrics. Okay, first up, Protocol 1, Status Correction. This is presented as the non-negotiable foundation. Everything else is built on top of this. It's all about establishing the correct jurisdictional footing from the very start.
The core concept is right there, status correction. You have to think of it as the prerequisite for everything that follows. The entire objective is to systematically and administratively separate what the framework calls the natural person from public jurisdictions.
Now, this slide really gets to the heart of the matter. It draws a very sharp contrast. On one side, you have the public U.S. citizen, which this system defines as corporate property operating as a debtor. On the other side, you have the private inhabitant, framed as a foreign estate with an administrator who functions as a creditor. That shift in status is the entire game. So how is this shift executed? The protocol outlines 4 key actions. First, execute a non-taxpayer affidavit to correct the public record. Second, establish a private administrative body, like a church or tribe. Third, deploy a patent of nativity to serve as an alternative identity document. And finally, signal that jurisdictional shift using something like a baptismal certificate.
And what's the operational outcome of all this? Well, the so what layer is that completing this process is meant to invoke specific legal immunities. The framework explicitly claims this can activate diplomatic immunity under U.S. code and tax immunity by essentially reclassifying the individual's estate as a foreign entity.
Let's move on to Protocol 2, Architectural Construction. Once the status correction is complete, the next phase is all about building the administrative structures designed to protect and insulate that newly established status.
The guiding operational principle here is incredibly direct: own nothing and control everything. It's a strategic move away from direct personal ownership of assets, which the system argues creates liabilities, and a move toward administrative control through a series of specific legal structures.
And to make that happen, the framework requires the construction of several modular entities. You've got a family trust, which acts as the main container for wealth. Then a 508c1a ministry serves as the public-facing non-taxable arm. A holding company is used to maintain control while neutralizing liability. And finally, an LLC, typically using the person's name in all caps, acts as a commercial buffer for any public-facing business.
All right, next up is Protocol 3, and this is where we get into commercial engineering. This protocol is all about leveraging specific financial and tax mechanics to manage any and all interactions with the public system.
The central theory here is something called the tax matter principle. It posits that pretty much all public legal interactions are, at their core, financial and tax-based events. So the strategy is to shift your entire mindset away from discharging debt and towards settling obligations using things like credits and offsets.
This revenue recovery process follows a clear operational sequence. It begins with a specific tax assessment on the commercial entity. From there, a precise sequence of recovery forms is used. The framework also points to using the franking privilege for administrative mailings and strategically applying fringe benefits to lower taxable income. And here are some of the key instruments used in that process. You've got forms like the 1099 INT for interest, the 3800 for the general business credit, and the 8863 to recover education expenses. Each one is a specific tool designed to execute one part of the overall financial strategy.
So, what is the ultimate goal of all this commercial engineering? By systematically maintaining net operating losses, or NOLs, on the public-facing commercial entity, the private estate is designed to become what the system calls judgment-proof. The strategic outcome is to shield the core assets within the trust from civil litigation and other financial claims.
That brings us to our final protocol, number 4, security management.
This section details the procedures for accessing and managing securities that are reportedly linked to an individual's public trust via Treasury Direct and other legacy accounts.
Now, a critical warning is embedded in the system manual here. This process demands absolute precision. The Treasury will reject any claims it deems frivolous without a second thought. That means perfect documentation and exact tracing of CUSIP security identifiers are mandatory. There is no room for error.
The security liquidation process is a strict 5-step flow. You start with a securitization audit to locate the CUSIP numbers. Next, a formal resignation from any public office is executed. Then, a technique called the W4 sandwich is used to attach the securities to the trust. You then have to secure a medallion signature guarantee. And finally, direct the liquidated funds into the private trust.
Okay, to conclude this briefing, let's pull back for a 360-degree operational view. We're going to look at the system's life cycle and some key metrics to put this all into context.
This timeline provides the chronological architecture. The system traces its origins to what it calls a jurisdictional opening in 1865, moves through a policy foundation in 1950, and highlights a strategic initiative launch in March of 2021. It tracks through today and even provides a future projection for fall 2026.
And to understand the scale of the environment we're talking about, the system references this figure, $2.8 trillion. That's the stated value of Treasury security holdings as of June 2024. This number is used to frame the sheer size of the financial system in which these protocols operate. And finally, here's a look at the technical form registry, just a few examples of other critical instruments. Form 56F, for instance, gives notice of a fiduciary relationship. Form 4361 is used by ministers to claim exemption from self-employment tax. Each form is a specific tool with a very specific function within this architecture.
So, the architecture has been defined, and the protocols have been established. This concludes the system overview. The final directive posed by the material itself is this: how will you execute your transition to private administration?